Here, let me tell you something really quick, all right? Recording guitars should not take all day. Now, I'm guilty of this. I used to overthink the process, and when I had an idea when I was playing guitar, I would open up the DAW, I would try to figure out what the BPM was, I would try to figure out if it was in a different meter, and then I would insert some drums, and then I would write some drum parts, and then, if I remembered the idea, I would record the guitar part. And after losing a number of ideas, it became clear that I needed to simplify my process, needed to make it easier, faster, and have a much more efficient workflow. By and large, this is the workflow that I use today, especially when I'm working on YouTube videos in between everything else that I'm doing. It allows me to come up with an idea and record it within a matter of seconds. So I'm going to share that workflow with you guys today, as well as my tips and tricks personally that work for me that you might want to implement for yourselves. First things first, you should have a recording template ready to go. At this point, I consider it non-negotiable, and this template needs to have everything in it that you would need to record your ideas fast. I'm talking about panned rhythm guitar tracks. If you like the quad track, have 4 guitar tracks. They're all pre-panned and ready to go. One of those tracks should be armed with an amp simulator already on it with a preset that you like to use for recording. If you like to do solos, have a solo guitar track. If you like to do cleans, have clean track. What I'm saying is everything that you would want to record with or what you would typically do should be in this template ready to go from the moment that it opens. Additionally, it's a really good idea to have a drum library ready, loaded to go with a track already there so that you can program some ideas in or drag in some grooves right away to facilitate the recording process. This template will save you easily 5 to 10 minutes, and I promise you, you will forget your idea within those 5 or 10 minutes if you're not constantly playing it or trying to hum it or some way trying to remember it so you don't forget it. The next thing you need to make sure of is that you have the lowest possible buffer size setting that you can set for your computer. This is extremely important. If you do not do this, you will wonder why when you play the string and it round travels and you're hearing it like a couple milliseconds later and you can't sync with the metronome, because what you're hearing and you're playing doesn't match up. It doesn't sync. Your body goes crazy. So that's why when you're playing guitar to a metronome on the computer, you're playing with the metronome, your hand is in sync, but then what you're hearing coming back puts you out of sync and you can't find your rhythm. Now, the reason I'm showing B-roll in this video is because when I record guitars, my buffer setting size is 16 samples. That is the absolute lowest that I can set it for my computer and my interface. And it pretty much guarantees that I can play on time and locking with the metronome that I'm listening to. And it's way easier to double and quad parts like that instead of having to retrack over and over and over until I get lucky that everything lines up. Now, one other major thing to note here is do not have any other plugins than you need in the session, especially mastering grade plugins. So if you got Ozone on your master bus, get rid of that shit. It's adding like 150 milliseconds of latency, and you're wondering why you can't play guitar with the metronome and record normally. Every plugin that you add into your session is going to add latency. That's why it's a very good idea to have just one amp simulator, the one drum library, and a tuner. That's all you're going to need. Don't add anything else. It's just going to add latency and make your recording process that much harder. Listen, I used to hate presets. I called them lazy, and when my original training, Guitar Tone Mastery, came out in 2019, I advocated against them. I was like, why are you using presets when you can develop your own sound, your own voice, etc.? This is all true. However, we're talking about recording guitars quickly. If you are trying to build a guitar tone instead of recording guitars, you're not recording. So if you have a list of presets that you like to use that sound really good and inspire you to keep recording, that is awesome. And I have totally changed my opinion over the years of using presets. And in fact, I gotta be honest with you, I use presets all the time. Now this is where my Neural DSP and my NAMM profiles and my ToneX profiles come in handy. And I have wholeheartedly spent this entire year creating high quality Neural DSP presets for black metal, death metal, doom metal, atmospheric stuff. And I've also gotten started doing NAMM profiles and ToneX profiles of my amps, just creating really cool guitar sounds that you can use to write music. Because let's face it, at the end of the day, when you're recording guitar, the important thing is to record the guitar, get a really good performance. And there's an argument to be made that when you have a really good sound, it kind of comes through in the performance, right? Not everyone can ignore a shitty guitar tone while they're recording. Some people can. I can. That's what I used to advocate when I taught Guitar Tone Mastery. I said, you can do all the tone crafting later. But there really is an argument like, wow, this thing really chugs. This is awesome. It comes through in the performance. So that's why now I advocate strongly to record with presets, worry about the tone crafting and the mixing stuff later. Now, another mistake that I used to make a lot, I would come up with the idea and I would try to analyze it right away. What meter is it in? What's the tempo? What kind of drum beats would work with? Wrong, wrong, wrong. Open your template, record the idea immediately. Don't worry about messing with the BPM. Don't worry about anything. Just hit record and play the damn riff. And more than anything, don't worry about nailing it or playing it perfectly. You're going to re-record it later. The whole point is to get the idea into the DAW so that you can save it and get it out of here. Because if it stays in here, it will be gone because you'll forget it at a snap of a finger. Ask me how I know. But you'll be very surprised that once you get the idea out of here and into your DAW with your template session, more ideas will come. You'll modulate the riff. You'll be like, what about this? What about that? What about... And then you'll keep writing instead of keeping it all up here and thinking about it and stewing about it. Get it out of here. Play it into the template session and get it into the session and save it. Because once you've done that, you will feel a lot better about yourself and you will feel safe. Now, I'm going to add this one in here. It's not quite about recording guitars fast, but once you have the idea down and the BPM is decided and you have the meter, write a basic drum groove. It can be just kick snare. That's what I do. And if you don't like programming drums, use some MIDI groups from Loudstack. They're really good stuff. You can help build out your song and song structure like that. But the point is you can already start experimenting like how the riff works with different type of drum groups. Does it need like an AC/DC beat 4 on the floor? Could you do a skank beat? Could you do a bomb blast? Could you do a traditional Euro blast? You can start the ideation process with the riff that you have and then the different drums that you might want to use. Now, the reason I'm putting that in here is because when you are going to record, the final guitar parts, I highly recommend that you do that with the drums and the metronome. Now, why do I say this? You can record just to the metronome 100%, but a lot of people have a very hard time grooving with the metronome. They can't really feel or visualize like, they can't groove with a deet, 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 they need something going on. So even some musicians have to record with other musicians so they can feed off the energy and the groove of one another. And building off on that, I would also highly suggest that you record each guitar part, individually by itself. So you have the guitar part, you record it, drag it down to the next track, mute that track. The reason for doing that is you are always concentrating on the drums and the metronome. If you're playing tight and you're playing well, all those tracks will line up. There's nothing worse than, okay, cool, I got the left guitar, tracked. I'm gonna do the right guitar, and you're playing, and for 2 palm mutes, that left guitar was out of sync. Well, that's gonna confuse you. It's gonna fuck you up. And then even worse, you might sync with that guitar part after you've been practicing it, trying to record it a couple times, and then you'll just be really pissed off when you go to listen to those tracks together, and you're gonna be like, they're off. They don't sync up. So now you have to record both of them all over again, or at least you have some editing to do. Either way, it's a crappy situation to be in. So just record each part by itself with the drums and the metronome. Now, to prove my point about how quickly this can be done, all the B-roll you've been seeing around here was something that I did literally just before recording this video. So in about 30 minutes, I have this entire idea recorded from start to finish with a basic drum groove and bass programmed in. And here actually is the result. Now, as you can hear, that is a pretty awesome sounding demo. So imagine if you put that together and you sent it to your bandmates, they'd be pretty stoked on that because the guitars sound awesome. The drums are preset for Superior Drummer 3 Death, and then just some basic bass programming in there. So the bassist, the drummer, and the other guitar player, and the vocalist especially, could get an idea of the idea that you had in 30 minutes of inspiration. So that's why it's such a big deal to be able to record your guitars quickly, have a method set up, have templates set up, and use great sounding presets. As the great philosopher Peter Griffin said one time, it's easier than we're making it. All right, guys, that's going to do it for the video. Just a cool, quick one this week of how I record my guitars quickly. Let me know if you implement any of these, and actually, if you have any tips or tricks for anyone else watching the video, leave below in the comments. That'd be pretty cool. And if you did like how those guitars sounded, that is my new NAMM and ToneX profile pack called Visceral Savagery. It's for brutal death metal type sounds. You can find them on my site, link in the description below. Have a great weekend, you guys. I'll see you in the next video.